Global Business Report on Arise News. A billboard in Lagos State, heading from Marina, I guess, to the mainland, was photographed by a commuter. Now, it featured a solicitation for investment in agriculture products with a promise of a return of 73% in 6 months. Now, these so-called agro investments have gained popularity in Nigeria, with numerous businesses popping up on social media and claiming to own farmland that produces either crops and livestock with varying degrees of return on investments in the high double digits. Now, the concern for Nigerians is legitimacy of these investments, considering the low interest rate environment and high risk of destruction of farm produce due to lack of storage facilities and poor road networks from the farms to the markets for sale. So what can be done to regulate these, quote, agro investments, and who can Nigerians turn to for information on how to assess them? Joining me from our Arise TV studios in Abuja from the Nigeria Securities and Exchange Commission is Mr. Emomotimi Agama, Head of Registration, Exchanges, Market Infrastructure and Innovations. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. We appreciate your presence. Now, so let's take a look at that billboard again. What is the SEC doing to address the numerous amounts of crowdfunding schemes that are popping up across Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you, Rotus, for having me this morning. It's a pleasure to be here once again. What's important to note is that there is a law, and that law is the Investment and Securities Act 2007. Section 13A of that law empowers the SEC to regulate investment and securities business in Nigeria. So, clearly, if any organization is involved in an investment and securities business in Nigeria and is not under the regulation of the SEC, it's a violation of the law. What are we doing? We are doing everything we can within the law to be able to bring to book whoever is involved in a scheme or a business that requires regulation and is not under regulation. So besides that, I'm sure you are all aware that in the light of the various crowdfunding platforms that have been popping up in Nigeria, the SEC had recently issued a draft regulation on crowdfunding. We are taking the first step, and we have done the second step, and we've published it again as an exposure for comments and feedback from Nigerians and the stakeholders at large.
Excellent. I think we have an image of that. We have an image of that draft. Now, can you spell out the process for your draft of crowdfunding rules? What process has to be taken from here now for it to become law?
Okay, yeah, so it's pretty simple and very clear. So what happens is that the draft rule is produced at the SEC, and after various consultations and research work that has been done internally at the SEC, once that is done, experts are expected to review such draft rules and regulation, and the SEC has what we call the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is actually a committee of the board of the SEC that reviews and deliberates on such rules. Once that is done, we now publish that rules to the public to receive comments and, of course, from individual stakeholders and experts, in order for us to have a feel of exactly how people consider and receives the rule or receives the rule. After that is done, once we get feedback, it will then return back to the trenches, that is the Rules Committee, to review such feedbacks, accept what is acceptable, and of course decline those things that do not, form part of what we should have in our rules. And after that is done, if the rules are so much, if the corrections or the inputs is so much, what we do again is, in order to have a fair representation of what has been submitted to the SEC, that rule is published again to the public to have a review, a second leg review, and once that is done, it returns back to the SEC, and the Rules Committee again sits over such rules. Then, once we are okay with this review, then what happens is that it now goes to the executive management and subsequently to the board and then to the minister for assent and final publication as a rule for operations. So that is simply the process of rulemaking at the SEC.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. That's clear as day. How long is it going to be with the Minister of Finance before if she has to make any amendments or anything like that?
The ISA makes clear provision as to what happens. So it goes to the Minister for Finance for 15 days, after which, if there is no comment by the minister, it's assumed to have become operational.
Fantastic stuff. But I want to ask you about, how much responsibility here should be shouldered by the SEC. There are many who feel that there are others that should take some responsibility here. Now, I'm talking about, three particular players: insurance companies, social media influencers. I think we'll look at some tweets here, or we've got some folks who are, promoting some of these schemes. Yeah, there we go. We can put it up for our viewers to see now. Insurance companies, social media influencers, and the state. So for the insurance companies, a lot of these schemes say that they are insured. People take it to mean that the investment is insured, when actually it's the assets, whatever farmland or crops or livestock is being offered as investment. Social media influencers that come on air on social media and tell people to go and invest in that, whether they should know better. And then the states, that Billboard, I don't know, it's been said we should talk to APCON, for example, the Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria. So what's your thought? What do you think? Should SEC handle this alone, or should all these other parties, should insurance companies, for instance, reject such offers to them? Should social media influencers turn them down? Should APCON, the states, turn these things down as well?
Right. Thank you once again. It is not the responsibility of the SEC to talk about what the insurance companies should do. The insurance companies have a regulator, which is NICOM, and of course, APCON, in terms of publications and advertisement, is done by APCON, that's the regulatory body for advertising. But for the SEC, what is important is that it is always important for people to know that there is a caveat: buyers beware. You must take your time to review any investment. We all have responsibilities as individuals, as citizens of this country, not to delve into investment areas that we do not understand, because that's a key part of investment. And we should also not allow greed, overshoot its boundaries in our desire to make more money. So when you know that it is too good to be true, certainly there are issues around it. So for us at the SEC, within regulations, if you do not operate within regulations, of course, our enforcement team will come after you, and the law itself will definitely meet you where you least expect. So that is our position at the SEC. The responsibility for people not to do investments that do not fall within regulation is important, and it's part of their responsibility as individuals and as people to understand that when you do not understand, you have a place to turn to. The SEC is available at any point in time to answer inquiries that are sent to it. And that is why we always, as much as possible, make all the efforts to reach out to the public and the various stakeholders. As the regulator of the securities market, the investment and securities market in Nigeria, we will always meet our responsibilities.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Very reassuring. Still on the social media angle, what about the capacity to be able to do that? Social media is expansive. There's so many accounts popping up. Would you have to boost your manpower to have, like the FBI has a social media department, things like that, even the EFCC, I think. How will you tackle that? Well,
the DG of the SEC, Mr. Lamido Yuguda, is very, very particular about investor protection. And for him, that is one of the primary reasons of regulation. And because that is the case, internally, we'll do all that we need to do. Of course, we have structures on ground that deal with issues like this. And particularly, let me let you know that the SEC has a market relations division. The responsibility of the Market Relations Division is actually to reach out to stakeholders and, of course, to answer questions or inquiries as they come in. And within the Market Relations Division, I know also that we have a social media team that works around the clock. If you actually connected to us on Twitter, you are connected to us on LinkedIn, you are connected to us on Facebook, you will see the amount of work that is being done. That is not to say that we do not need assistance. We sure do. Every person that everybody that is able to provide some level of assistance, like you're doing, of course, making sure that issues that should not be are brought out to the public for people to understand and appreciate, and of course, providing platforms for the SEC and the teams at the SEC to be able to make clarifications when necessary. And we are always there to have that relationship with the market whenever we are called upon to do so.
Thank you so much. I've only got about a minute to go. I just want to get your thoughts on the digital assets. You also had an announcement with respect to how the SEC wants to approach digital assets. We had a cryptocurrency trader earlier in the week who talked about this. Is there anything you wanted to address or clear up from that interview that we had?
Yes, it was a great interview, but importantly, when we talk about digital assets, it goes beyond, the loud noise or the loud voice around cryptocurrencies. Digital asset talks about security tokens and every other instrument that you find within the digital asset framework. So that is very important for people to know because a lot of people emphasize so much on cryptocurrencies, beyond cryptocurrencies. So that is what we at the SEC will want to put out to the public, that it is beyond cryptocurrencies. And of course, we also saw in the news media issues about cryptocurrencies being legal tenders. No, that is not the case. What we are regulating is the trading of these assets on a recognized exchange that is registered by the SEC. Section 13 again of the ISA provides us, the SEC, the power to regulate exchanges, register and regulate exchanges. So whatever is being traded on a registered exchange or a regulated exchange, which is the necessary, which is really necessary, it's actually expected to be under our regulation. The cryptocurrencies are never legal tenders, not until they are issued by the central bank of those countries. And the SEC did not and will not ascribe that to cryptocurrencies or any other cryptocurrency, as the case may be. So what is important is that they are digital assets and they are traded on a recognized exchange. Hence, they must come under the regulation of the SEC.
Fantastic stuff. Mr. Emomotimi Agama, SEC Head of Registration, Exchanges, Markets, Infrastructure and Innovation. Thank you so much for a very clear illustration of what the SEC is planning to do for agro investments and also for virtual currencies. We appreciate your insights and thank you for being on the show.